so we moved the main band earlier in the day, you know. So we'll see, you know. There's some people that come in that are pretty well connected to the Pittsburgh music scene, friends of ours, Nate and Bianca, and they come in. I mean, they follow us regularly. I got a beer named after them, and, you know, and they're, you know, hopefully they're in on this too in some way or another, because they usually sway a lot of opinion. If they say, hey, we're going here, then other people follow them around. So I hope they're coming. I think they are. I think they're actually somehow involved with this, but I don't know.
Right.
Got a manager for that, so I stay out of it. You know, I'm better. Some things you're better off as a manager just staying out of. You know, like, yep, okay, go ahead, yeah, sounds good to me. Don't tell me too much. Do it.
Now, you guys mainly focus when it comes to lagers. You do some porters, but you mainly stay in that realm. Why do you feel that is kind of more your wheelhouse, and you don't really branch out to the IPAs or the heavier stouts or some of the other maybe like sours or so forth?
Well, I mean, you can get that stuff pretty much anywhere, right? I mean, how many times you walk into a bar, you know, a brewery, and it's like they got 10 or 12 beers on tap, and you know, 11 of them are IPAs, you know, and you're like,
right.
Oh. And so, I mean, I feel like that stuff is well represented at other places, you know. So, and honestly, I never brewed an IPA at home that I ever liked, one that I brewed, you know. I just never, it just never really, I never figured it out, you know. Clearly there's a skill to it, and I never got the skill. But what I was passionate about was brewing lager beers. That's what my whole focus of my home brewery was, to brew lager beers. And it was not really easy to do back in the day. And the main thing was refrigeration. When I got my first jacketed tank for homebrew sized beers, you know, More Beer made one. I mean, I was like, I probably have tank number 2, you know, the prototype that they built, and then the second one they made came to me, you know, because I was so into that, being able to lager. See, you have to be able to lager to make lagers, right? Mm-hmm. Now, there's ways to accelerate that a little bit now, but it's not the same as lagering. So anyhow, that's where my passion was brewing lager beers, making those clean, malt forward for the most part, or, you know, less hop forward beers that had clean flavors and easy to drink. Now, a porter, I make a porter, but it's a Baltic porter, so it's a little bit different than the English porter in the sense that it's generally fermented with lager yeast at a colder temperature. So yeah, it was intended. The Baltic porter was intended to compete with the British porter, right? That was the idea. Right. But using known, proven German brewing methods. And then, of course, any wheat beer is typically going to be an ale. You know, you don't usually ferment wheat beers at cold temperatures. You can't do that with a wheat strain, you know, wheat yeast strain. It won't ferment at 50 degrees. It'll stall out and it'll give up. And alt beer and Kolsch, of course, are not really lagers either. You know, I mean, They are in one sense because you're fermenting them colder than you would, say, an American pale ale or a British pale ale. But they're, you know, it is a German ale strain that you use for those beers. So, yeah. I mean, I think you'd say that I was like a German style brewery. Maybe would be probably a better way to put it. But I mean, I'll make an American beer. I usually have an American pale lager on. That's pretty much a staple on the taps. There's some people that all they want is just a regular beer, you know. That's what but they don't want to drink a Budweiser anymore. They want to drink a craft beer, you know. And I'm particularly fond of our Bohemian style Pilsner that I do. That's turned out to be a big seller in a lot of ways. So, you know, that's a style of beer that you kind of have to get it right. If you don't get it right, people won't drink it. It won't taste right. Be too bitter, or not bitter enough, or don't have enough malt flavor in it, so it's not balanced right, you know. So I've been able to get that one down pretty good. So yeah, I think it's a passion thing for me more than it is, you know, anything else. But it's also no one else is doing it around here. Everybody else is on the IPA web. You know. So.
No, you're right. Yeah, I've talked to so many breweries now, and the thing with craft is like, you know, it's a pendulum situation. It's, you either we've gone all the way to tilt on one side, and now we're coming back to really showing that if you are a great brewery, you can make a really good lager, because, you know, you can't hide anything in it. It takes more time, and, you know, you have to put in the time and you have to put in the effort for it. And I know a lot of breweries or brewers themselves, when they go to different breweries, the first thing they will order at a brewery is the lager. And if it's not good, then the rest of the beers probably aren't going to be good either. It's almost like if you go to a new donut shop, make sure to get the glazed first, because again, if that one's not good, the rest of the donuts probably aren't going to be good either.
I've never met a donut I didn't like. We've got
yeah, well, me too. True. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You know, I think there's a natural instinct for a guy that wants to brew craft beer. There's a natural instinct to want to experiment, right?
Well, of course.
And there's really no better platform for experimenting really than the IPA, right? I mean, hop research has gone overboard in the last 10, 15 years, right? There's new varieties of hops coming out all the time. When I was first starting in brewing, there were like 3 kinds of hops you could get, period, right? That was it. Kent Goldings and Brambling Cross or something, and Comet, you know, that's it. You're not brewing with Willamette maybe with us. There were very few hops that were like available. Now it's like, man, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, it's natural for people to gravitate to the IPA platform. I think it's a platform really at this point, because it's really just a hop showcase, you know. So it's a platform where you showcase hops. And yeah, that's the place to experiment, because there's so many different kinds of hops. And my impression of an IPA is it's a beer that you should brew it in small batches, and you should have very quick turnover of it, right? Because those hop flavors do not last. You know, you ever eat a can of Heady Topper? You know that beer? Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, Heady Topper. All right. So the can, it says on the can, do not pour into a glass and drink while young. It says that right on the can. I didn't know that before, but somebody showed me a can of it, and I read the fine print. And that's what it says on the can. So that beer, the moment you pop the can open and it's exposed to oxygen in the atmosphere, those hop flavors start changing right before your taste buds. It's actually amazing. You take that can of beer and take that first sip, and you'll be like, that's the hops I know and love. And the second sip, it won't be quite the same as the first sip. And the third sip, again different. It's just, and so if you pour that thing into a glass, you're basically blowing out, you're vaping off the flavors that you paid for to get it. So IPAs, that's a beer. If I was going to get an IPA at a brewery, and honestly, I don't really feel like going to breweries anymore. I go to mine. I'm like, that's it, man. I don't have beer room. I don't have enough beer room done. So I don't really get to taste anybody else's stuff anymore unless they bring it over to the brewery. You know, I got to go on a vacation to taste a beer that's not mine. You know, so I think that's what I'd say about IPAs. Drink them young, and if you're a craft guy brewing them, brew small batches and have high turnover, because you're giving the customer the best if you do that. So that would be my take on the IPA thing. And lagers are great for us because they tend to get better as they sit around, right? Lager sitting in the lager, and the longer it sits in the lagering tank, generally the better it gets up to a certain point. So, and we serve out of bright tanks. All our beer is in bright tanks. Well, we do keg a little bit. When a bright tank gets low, I'll keg what's left to free up the tank for another batch of beer. But other than that, the kegs we don't take them anywhere. They're just ours, right? We use them in the brewery. We're not distributing at all. Mm-hmm. People come in and they want to take a keg of beer home or whatever, and I'm like, I can't really do that, I'm not equipped. Guy that sells hot dogs at our place sometimes, he's a vendor. We have food, right? Food trucks. So no restaurant in our brewery. It's just a brewery, and then we have food trucks show up. One vendor's a hot dog man, and he somehow, he wants us to, be with him wherever he goes with his hot dog cart or whatever. And I'm like, look, I can't. I don't have the personnel, number one. And number two, the equipment costs and whatever. I said, we're just not equipped to do it, So sometimes you just got to say no to a business proposition, and that's us, right? We're at the point now where we have what we wanted to get. It's stable, it's working, and I don't want to go out of my lane. I just want to stick with what I got for a while. So.
No, that makes complete sense. Now, I know this one's going to be a little tough for you, but what are your top 3 favorite beers you've ever made?
Well, the Bow Pills is up there for sure. The Hellas is another one that people really enjoy. And let's say about a third. Third would probably be the Spring Bock that I do.
Okay.
So, yeah, because, I've had so many requests for that. So this is probably every craft brewer's had this quandary, right? So you brew a batch of beer, and I will preface this by saying one thing first. So you brew a batch of beer, and you try to brew that same beer 6 months later, it ain't the same beer, okay? I don't care what you do, right? The grain is probably from a different lot, so it may have been malted slightly differently. Your water profile could be different. The hops are probably from a different year, and you think you're brewing the same batch of beer. Well, it's the same recipe, but it ain't the same batch of beer, right? And anybody that tries to tell you otherwise, they're just kidding themselves, right? Yeah. So I'd say the Springbok, right? So, but the quandary is this, right? So you brew a batch of beer and everybody loves it, and it sells immediately, and it's a seasonal, right? And then you're like, boy, that sold so well, I should have that all year round. Well, it's not a seasonal.
Yeah, it could be a seasonal if you got it all year.
So, some things you just got to say no. You got to put the brakes on. Say, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to have a seasonal all year round. What's the point?
You're not wrong there.
Yeah, right. Well, so you got to resist the temptation to do that, right? And so I think those are my 3. It's going to be the Bow Pills, the Hellas, and then probably the Springbok. But I don't know. You're right. That's a tough question because I would drink any one of the beers that we make, right? There's not a one of them that if you poured me a glass, I'd go, no thanks, not today.
Right.
I would drink any one of them, and I often do. So when I'm there, I'll somebody will say, that's a peculiar taste on that. And I'll pour a glass myself and go, no, it's good, it's fine, it's what it's supposed to be, So it's I've learned this too. So like if you eat a Junior Mint and then drink a glass of beer, like, oh my God, what the hell?
Oh, yeah.
What put in this beer? It's terrible, So you got to watch what you're like eating and drinking at the same. Chewing a piece of gum and drinking a beer. No. Come on, it doesn't work.
No. Oh, exactly. Yeah, you're mixing flavors that that weren't supposed to be mixed.
Yeah, they're incompatible, like big time.
So when you guys were opening, who were some breweries that kind of helped you guys out, or ones that you kind of still lean on?
Well, honestly, I never really leaned on anybody. We had a good Patrick was the guy's name. I from Portland Kettle Works, right? And he was their salesperson, obviously, but, was very well knowledged in brewing.